Hello and welcome. I'm author and historian Claire Ridgway, and today I've got something a little different but very exciting for you. We're stepping away from the Tudors briefly to travel back just a few decades to the final Plantagenet king, Richard III. I recently had the pleasure of sitting down with the incredibly passionate and talented team behind A Taste of Loyalty, a powerful new short film that will bring a pivotal moment in Richard III's life to the screen with gripping drama, historical authenticity, and a real emotional punch. This isn't your typical Hollywood version of Richard. This is Richard as he may have truly been: brother, soldier, man. And the creative team behind this project are blending historical research, compelling storytelling, and beautiful original music to make it happen. In this interview, we talk about what inspired the project, why now is the right time for a story like this, how you can help bring it to life through their crowdfunding campaign, and what myths about Richard III they're ready to challenge. So if you're a fan of medieval history, historical fiction, film, or just love seeing passion projects come to life, stay tuned. I think you'll find this conversation fascinating.
So a huge welcome to Thomas Dennis, Tiffany Lunn, and Matthew Lewis, for joining me for this interview about a very special project. And thank you to Tiffany for telling me all about this project in the first place.
You're welcome.
So the project is called A Taste of Loyalty. That's the project, and it's on Indiegogo at the moment, sort of for funding. So I want to start by looking at the big picture. What is it? What is this project? What is A Taste of Loyalty? And what inspired you? And I don't mind who answers this or whether you all want to come in on it. What inspired you to bring this particular moment of King Richard III's life to the screen? And there you go. I've given it away. It's about Richard III, which it was going to be with Matt Lewis involved, wasn't it?
I think
too predictable, I think.
no, not at all, not at all. I think for me, the inspiration has been building for a long time, working with Matt and meeting a lot of the historians in the Wars of the Roses community and learning a lot more about Richard III. I've been studying and learning about Richard for many years, but when I finally got the chance to meet Matt, I read his novel and was captivated by it and just thought it was a very human interpretation of a man faced with difficult decisions. And I think when we look at the way history has told Richard's story, it has been very particular with trying to make him look more villainous than I believe he would have been. But whether you believe in that kind of Tudor propaganda version or not, it doesn't really matter. I think what we want to create is a real human story. So it's looking at the history, it's using Matt's incredible research, his incredible novel as a basis to tell Richard's story in a new way that hasn't been done before. So yeah, that's where the inspiration came from me. And then a few years ago, I said, Matt, will you let me adapt your novel? Will you let me try and put it on the screen? And Matt said yes. So we started working on it all those years ago, and now we're at a place where we can take some snippets from it, create this beautiful short film, and get it out into the world, which is the idea.
Oh,
I feel like I might need to turn my red filter down because I'm conscious I'm going very red-faced while Thomas is doing this.
Get used to it.
And I think the reason that we've picked the moment, so this is a short film based on the script for a full-length feature film. And the reason we picked this moment, it will focus on the Battle of Barnet, Richard III's kind of first taste of battle. It's the opening of the book and the screenplay. And it's just a point in Richard's story that's not normally told. It would have been really easy to go for Bosworth or to go for the summer of 1483 when it's all kicking off and everybody knows what's happening. But we're here in 1471 with an 18-year-old, and it gives us the chance to introduce the audience to him and a little bit about who he is, the tumult that is going on around him. We're going to see a battle, a full-on medieval battle, and we're going to see a little bit of the politics that runs through the story as well. So it was just a really good little window to be able to introduce a different Richard from the one you might have seen on a screen before?
And when we first started talking about it and discussing it, our biggest question was, how do we get the exposition into the story? Because there is so much background to Richard and the period and the politics and what's at play at the time in the late 1400s. And if we went with, for example, Bosworth, like Matt talks about, everybody in the history world or people who are interested in Richard might know a lot about that and know about Bosworth Field and his cavalry charge and all of this. But if you don't, if you're coming at this completely fresh, you're going, who's that? What's happening there? Why do I care? Well, why does this man mean so much? What's going on? And so this is a launch pad for us, where actually we can tell a story very quickly, in a very short space of time, where we believe as an audience it doesn't matter what your investment in Richard III is, your understanding of it. You can watch it and you can get on board with these characters. You can meet them for the first time, and it can pique your interest. It can go, okay, this is the start of something. This is the start of a journey, a roller coaster. And hopefully by the end of the short film, the audience will be going, we want to see more. We want to see what happens next. Where does this go from here?
And if nothing
And I
else, you can
suppose-
watch some men
sorry.
in medieval armour hitting each other really, really hard.
Yeah.
And some of them will be hitting Thomas too. You know, if you want to see Thomas get hit, give him
Yeah.
I'm sure people do.
But I suppose the Battle of Barnet has never been shown on film either. I don't think there's any film that features in, so it's brand spanking new.
Well,
And it's a
and
really-
Barnet has so much going for it. You know, it's
Yeah.
fought in the fog. It's fought on an Easter Sunday. It's Richard's first taste of battle. It's the Yorkist effort to retake the throne. They're fighting against their own first cousin, the man who helped them become kings in the first place, helped Edward IV become king. There is so much going on at Barnet, you know, and we can't even get into all of it in this short film. But you know, there is Oxford kind of chasing Hastings away from the battlefield and then coming back, and people mistaking his stars and streamers badges for Edward's son in splendour, and cries of treason going up everywhere. It's absolute carnage. You know, it's one of those moments where there is so much going on. It's absolutely fascinating, and yet it has never made it onto the big screen before. So I guess, as Tiffany says, it's another reason to do it is that it's never been done before.
Mm.
And it's
And what a place
a
to
very
start.
different, yeah, it's very different look at Richard, sort of looking at the young Richard, because too often, you know, the Richard III we see on the screen, or that we see being discussed, is the Richard, you know, coming to the throne, and you know, is he a usurper or not, and then the princes in the tower, and just concentrating on that end bit of his life, and never really understanding who he was as a man. And it's like, I hate to mention the Tudors Showtime series, but what I liked about that was the focus on the young Henry VIII, when so many people think of that late Henry VIII, the tyrant, the big, larger than life, not the 17-year-old that came to the throne. And yeah, I like the fact that you're looking at this, forgotten Richard.
Yeah, and I think there's two things going on there. So like Thomas says, it gives us a chance to introduce the audience to him and try to establish why you might care about this person. Because if you throw someone into the politics of 1483 or the Battle of Bosworth, as Thomas said, you're left thinking, whose side am I on? You know, why do I care about this guy that you've put at the centre of the film? Well, here's a chance to establish him early on as a figure that you might like, you might want to know more about, you might want to know what's driving him. And the other thing I think is building on what you said, we seem to have moved away from it, fortunately. You think about films like The Lost King, when Richard is presented as a much younger figure, but for so long Richard has been played by old men. And I mean men older than me. I think I'm old, but he's played by men older than me. This is a man who was 32 when he was killed.
Yeah.
He doesn't live to be the kind of Laurence Olivier 50-year-old man looking ready to draw his pension anytime soon. And so many actors have played him that are, you think Ian McKellen in the film that they made of Shakespeare's Richard III, he's not that. No. It's one of the key things that people get. So people have this image of Richard, I think, as this old, vicious, nasty man. And if you think he was vicious and nasty, he definitely wasn't old. He didn't make it past 32.
Mm.
Mm.
That's probably down to the portraits there, isn't it? If you think about the portraits, the famous portraits of Richard III, it's, you know, you were looking at a much older man, really, aren't you?
The doctored portrait.
Yeah,
of
they
him.
didn't really. Yeah, they don't do him justice, do they?
Well, they've done kind of X-rays on those portraits that prove that they were, as Tiffany said, doctored afterwards. They've narrowed his lips and they've squinted his eyes and they've pinched his nose to make him look like a nastier, older man than he ever was.
And I think with all of this, it does come back to this idea of humanity, you know, and I think what's really exciting about the history of Richard's story is this search for truth in the revisionism of him as well. So the idea that we've had many historians, including Matt, doing an incredible amount of work trying to re-examine and search for the truth about a character who's had, you know, has been maligned throughout history. To what extent, that is obviously down to interpretation. But why I think that is then really important with today is because the truth is so hard to come by in the modern world as well. You know,
Yeah.
we are constantly being drip fed via our forms of media what other people want us to think or believe or say, or, you know, and it's about, we're constantly in this battle of what is true, what is real, and what isn't. And I think when it comes back to a human being and we look at the situations that those human beings are presented with, and then the way they handle those situations, I think that captivates people about history. It's not just, as you mentioned earlier, Matt, it's not just a footnote in a history book of the Battle of Barnet was won and then they went on to Tewkesbury a few weeks later. End of sentence. You know, there's a lot more going on there. And how do those events impact our characters and build on their personalities as they go through this story? Because everything that happens in Richard's life, everything that happens in King Edward's life, everything that happens in George's life, and, you know, in Elizabeth Woodville's life, they shape these personalities that will end up taking the stage, you know, at the highest level of this country's political system at the time. And it's these events when they're younger and these relationships that plant the seeds for it. And in a way, our Taste of Loyalty project is us planting the seed of, we have a bigger story to tell, but it is also planting the seed for these character stories of going, this is the start of their journeys and there is so much more to come, and there is even more before as well, but you have to start somewhere. And I think Barnet is definitely that springboard into action, because if you've ever watched a film and it starts with action and you kind of, wow, okay, I'm hit with something, right, I'm in, let's go, let's find out more.
Yeah, and he also had a
sorry,
Colette.
Tiffany, you go.
He also had such a long career as Duke of Gloucester as well, way before he became king. So yeah, it's an interesting place to start.
Yeah, I mean, Thomas has already touched on this. I was going to ask about, you know, why do you think this is the right time for a project like this and what makes it relevant for the audience today? But, you know, Thomas has already talked about, you know, how we are, you know, we're affected by, propaganda, stuff on social media, AI, and, you know, and human nature doesn't change, does it really? Our context changes, but human nature doesn't change. So, yeah,
How
why?
awesome is that though, when you think about it? Human nature doesn't change, which
Mm,
means we can relate to somebody who lived that long ago.
Yeah.
And how do we relate? We relate in the humanity of it. Let's bring up Margaret Beaufort as an example. And Matt, you might just have to fact check me here on the specifics, but she gave birth at an incredibly young age. Now, if you're in a classroom full of kids who are all 13, and you turn around and you say to them, Margaret Beaufort, she was the mother of Henry VII, they're like this. They're asleep. But if you turn around and you say she gave birth to Henry VII at 13 years old, they're awake. They're going, whoa, hold on, what? I'm 30. How? What? Why? How must that have felt? If you connect with feelings, I think the history comes to life and people are captivated by it, you know, and that is, yeah, I had a little bit of I got a bit excited there, but that is, I think, at the heart of it is these are real people, and we are particularly looking at Richard, but there are some amazing characters in this story, and we're looking forward to you know, looking at all of them in the full length feature as well as we can. But I think that is what will attract people today, and I think that will attract people from any audience base as well. I don't think you need to necessarily know the history to watch this and relate to these people and think, well, hold on, how would I feel in that situation, or how would I behave in that environment, and do I relate these people, or do I not?
I think part of the why now as well is as Thomas touched on before. We live in an era of fake news where it's really difficult to work out what is true. And for me, a lot of the story of Richard III that people have clung on to for centuries is just fake news, but it's fake news that stuck for 500 years. That's really dangerous. Imagine the lies that we might be hearing today that will shape the world for centuries to come because nobody is interrogating them closely enough. This story asks lots of questions about that. How do you work out what is true? Can you really see people's motives when they haven't left you a nice convenient diary of Richard III, aged 32 and a half? You can't get at all of those things very easily. And what the screenplay for the full film starts to do is look at what is true, what do we know, what don't we know, where can we read between lines, and how do we end up with the version of Richard III that we've got? Because in the screenplay, there is enough of a gap for you to read in bits about what you think might have happened at certain points, and that's the point. Different people can read into different things into the story, and it hopefully it will cause people to question how they understand things to be true. How have you arrived at your understanding? And that's important today. That I quite often say when I talk to students or whatever else who get in touch with me, the study of history is the best weapon that we have against fake news, because it's all about interrogating your sources and understanding what people are telling you and why they're telling you those things. So those are kind of skills that are useful for today. And I think this story has lots of that wrapped up into it, lots of questioning why we think we believe what we think we believe.
Yeah. Tiffany, did you want to say anything, or shall I move on?
You can move on. I mean, you guys are the experts, but yeah, I totally agree. Like you say, with fake news and that, I don't believe anything I read anymore.
Yeah, and yeah, I just worry about hundreds of years time. What are people going to be saying about present celebs and how wrong they might be getting things? And
I just have the image in my mind of somebody digging up in 100, 200, 300 years time and finding a meme that is clearly like, we understand it to be sarcastic, we understand it to be making a jibe at something, and they don't understand the context, and they go, well then that's what they must have thought, and the same thing happens to us now when we look back at the history. There's so much in the writings of different people where we don't necessarily know the interpretations, or what the hidden meanings might have been, or what the context was that they were writing it in.
Now, one of the really wonderful things, the striking things about this project is your commitment to authenticity, your commitment to history, not as Hollywood sort of makes it. And I'm thinking of like Kate Blanchett and Elizabeth movies here, which I loved, but there's not much correlation with history there. So what does it mean to each of you in your role? What does that commitment sort of mean? How true are you being to history with this project?
Our aim is to be as true to the history as we can be. I think for me, when as a history lover, I do get a little frustrated when we watch films and we know that something in it is just completely and utterly ludicrous, and I don't see why it needs to be. I don't see why it needs to be changed when the story of the history itself is exciting enough. You don't need to embellish it. If we know that Napoleon didn't see Marie Antoinette's execution, why is he there? Why does that need to be a thing? It doesn't. It doesn't add anything. It's just you kind of playing around with this idea, and people who really are passionate about these periods that they study and they dedicate their lives to, they are your loyal audience. They are the people
Yeah.
who will be jumping at the bit to watch your films. And then in a way, it's a little bit of it feels to me like an affront on their intelligence to go, oh, we're just going to throw this in your face and say that's what happened when it's not. And I also think about this idea of truth. We learn so much from movies these days. People will learn more about the history of Napoleon from watching that film than they will from going and reading books about him. So you have a responsibility to be truthful in that. And of course, it's creative. So there is an element of interpretation. And where does the balance lie? And I think for us, what I'm so thrilled about with working with Matt and using Matt's novel as a starting point is that he's done the work. We know that Matt knows the history inside out, back to front. He's dedicated his life to it. So when I talk to him from a creative standpoint, when we're working on the script, I can go, creatively, this muddies the water here. Why? Because of this, that, and the other. How can we get it in a different way, or what can we use to further the story along here, to that is substantiated, that is backed up by the history, that is based on truth, and on people that we know existed and things that actually happened or conversations that were had. And then Matt can, bring out his incredible wisdom, and he can guide us through that. And he can say, well, how about this, or how about that, or this happened, can we use that in here somewhere? And it allows us then to, of course, there is then a creative interpretation on that, and people may watch it and they may disagree with the way Richard is portrayed, or they may agree. That is the creative side of things. But what they can't dispute is that we've made something up. We've decided that suddenly Richard has a third leg and he's walking around. You know what I mean? Like, we haven't made anything up. It's everything that we put in this creative vision, you will find somewhere within the history. And and I think that is important, and I think the people who love this period and who want to see Richard's story told, I think they will respect that. And that's what I'm hoping. So there might be certain things that might, with regards to, we're trying our best for absolutely everything, but when it comes to things like the fields in the background, if we haven't got the ridge and furrow, there is only so much we can achieve with the budget that we have and with the project that we're looking at making. However, in terms of what at the heart of it is this desire to be as truthful as possible.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because if you watch any of these other programs or whatever, and they're putting these things in and these changes, the only thing it adds is to your frustration when you're watching it, because I'm shouting at the screen normally. So yeah, we want that realism as far as we can take it from research that's actually being done. You can look at documents and see it in there.
Yeah, I annoy everyone when I go to the cinema or I'm watching TV, and it's historical. I'm going, well, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Nothing empties our living room more certainly than a period drama coming on.
Yes.
And me going, and everyone's had enough of that.
You just can't help yourself, can you?
You do that, Matt, so you can sit on your own and have nice peace and quiet while you watch it, don't you? It's a hidden tactic.
Give away all my secrets. I think my Elizabeth or Napoleon is Braveheart, probably. It's an absolutely incredible film, and I love it to bits. But it's historically absolute nonsense. It's completely made up, and so I think my role on this project, I guess, is to sometimes be the brakes. And Thomas doesn't do this, but it would be quite easy, I think, for the creativity to run away with itself, because that's the exciting bit. That's the vision. That's how you present all of this stuff and how you make it look better and make the story feel more compelling. And I guess my job is to sometimes just be the boring person going, oh, let's just slow down a little bit, and just to make sure that where Thomas is highlighting these needs to make creative changes, because the one thing about writing non-fiction or even writing fiction is you can put as much exposition in there as you like. You can have people's thoughts, you can give loads of background and everything else that you just can't do on a screen. And I think where Thomas and I have kind of, where I think we've worked quite well on this, is where Thomas is like, this is what we need creatively. How do we achieve it with the history? And that is always a process backwards and forwards between us. I don't think we've hit a moment yet where we've, fallen to punches and one of us won't give in. It has so far, touch wood, been a really nice process of we need this. How do we get to it? And me saying, well, what if we did this? And Thomas saying, well, we can't get that to look right on screen. And I'd say, how do we change it a little bit more? Well, what about this? And so that it never quite strays away from the history. And it's that thing of, we might curve the history a little tiny bit. We might bend it gently, but we are never, ever going to break it. And I guess, my job is to make sure the history doesn't get broken to meet the creative needs. And Thomas, I guess, is the opposite, that the creative vision isn't broken by dogmatically sticking to every single fact of the history. It's where those come together and blend and balance properly so that both work at the same time.
Yeah, I think they bounce off each other perfectly. That's what I'm seeing, because obviously I'm not involved to that degree yet. But because you've got the creative side from Thomas and then the historical side from Matt, and they're just talking about it and just coming up with different ideas, but because they've both got an interest in it, such an interest in it, it really seems to work. So it's really exciting.
I mean, when our first draft, I think, was about 5 hours long, wasn't it, Matt? We had a very long film, and we were like, okay.
Fair, I was like, that's great. We'll just do 5 hours of a film, and Thomas was like, maybe we can't do that.
Maybe we can't. If we film a little bit every year for the rest of our lives, we might just get there.
Well, it could be like Lord of the Rings. You could be going on forever. Part one. Yeah,
and there is definitely scope for that. I think the reason we've chosen film as a medium for now is well, from my perspective, is I love the art of filmmaking, in the sense of making a film is a piece of art, and you can sit down on an evening and you can watch the whole thing. We have a lot of TV series out there that do amazing work these days, but it is very binge worthy. It's very much like you've got 8 episodes, and before you know it, you've watched 4 in one night. And although the overall experience is great, with your feet up and a cup of tea and, Netflix on, and if you're paying for it properly, you don't get any adverts and all that is great. It in a way, it feels like it's a very long drawn out story. It's a marathon that you go through. Whereas I feel like with a film, it's its own thing. It's its own piece. And that is a challenge with the amount of exposition and the amount of detail that we do have about these incredible historical figures, that we have enough material for that amount of time. But I think making it into a succinct film, it has the potential to be magic. I really do believe that. I think it has the potential to take us on an incredible journey, and by the end of it, our audience should be feeling something. What it is they're feeling, well, that's up to them, but they should be feeling something.
I mean, at the end of the day, I know that Richard's story is historical, but Matt's book is a novel, so you have got that sort of the creativity, because we don't always know all of the facts. We don't know the person's feelings always. So I suppose you have got quite a lot of scope anyway, sort of. Yeah, you can be creative.
Oh, Matt's got a beautiful thread in the book that if you have read it, you'll know what it is. But if you haven't, it's something that you won't expect as well. So again, as you're saying, there is that creative flair there that adds another dimension to it. Again, rooted in the history. Again, rooted in, as Matt says, whether it's completely straight and narrow, it doesn't really matter, because it's not broken. It is there, and you can find it within the pages of history, and it's I really like it. It's something that I'm not going to say any more about it because I don't want to spoil it, but it is there. Unfortunately, that thread doesn't appear in the short film yet, because we're looking at something slightly different. But when it does appear in the full feature, I think people will be very pleasantly surprised by it.
You'll have to tell me what that is, Thomas. It sounds really good.
Yeah, Matt has a
It's been so long since you wrote it, Matt.
Yeah, Matt, I wanted to ask you about the novel. Can you tell us, for those that haven't sort of read it, the novel, what is the timeline of the actual novel, as opposed to, A Taste of Loyalty, the sort of short film? What is the timeline of the novel, and why this novel? Why and how did this particular novel come to why are you having it adapted for screen?
Yeah, I mean, so this was the first book that I ever wrote, fiction or non-fiction. This is my
Oh,
first book baby, and it was a project that it was going on for years and years and years and years. It was something I picked up and put down. Um, Lots of family stuff going on, getting in the way all of the time. I would set it aside for a while, come back to it, set it aside, come back to it, and it was really just an effort. I spent an awful lot of time reading non-fiction, researching as much as I could about the Wars of the Roses, Richard III, all of that kind of thing. And I guess it was just a way of expressing. So often it's frustrating if you write non-fiction and that kind of thing. You can't be in a room with a conversation that was never recorded. What I wanted to try and explore with this novel is, okay, I know that person was in the same room as that person, and that they both did these things afterwards. How do they get there? What's the conversation that went on between these people? What did they think each other were up to? What did they understand about the other person's motives? Those are the things that are really tricky to get to in non-fiction. You're sort of fenced in from doing anything like that. So I think I wanted to write the novel because I was reading and learning and researching about all of this stuff. It was almost a way to process the bits in between. It was a way to fill in the gaps that you couldn't fill in with non-fiction or research, or, like I say, Richard didn't leave us a diary, which is just rude and unhelpful. But if he had, what might he have been thinking? What might he have said about his brother George? What might he have thought about his mother? What might he have thought about the things that his big brother Edward was doing? How might he have felt about becoming king? However it is that he became king, whatever you believe was going on, there is nevertheless a human there who is feeling things. So I think writing the novel, it starts in 1471 at the Battle of Barnet. That is the opening of the novel too. And that was an effort, really. Richard's childhood is fascinating, but it's an effort to introduce him as an 18-year-old. So he's a grown-up, but he's still a teenager. He's going into his first taste of battle after a spell in exile. Though a lot has happened to this 18-year-old already, but it gives us a chance to look at how he becomes the man that will eventually take the throne as Richard III. So it covers the 12 years that he rules the north as Duke of Gloucester, and all of the things that are happening and forming his political experience and his character during those years. And then it's so often, so much of what we read about Richard III does throw us into 1483 with kind of no background or understanding of what's going on. And it's very easy to get what I would call the wrong picture of Richard if you just take 1483 onwards, because there is so much that happens before that informs what goes on in 1483. So the book kind of follows him from 18 until his, spoiler alert, death at 32 at the Battle of Bosworth, and tries to figure out, I guess it's the process of my brain working out how he arrived at all of the things that we remember him for in 1483, 1484 and 1485. What might he have been thinking?
So loyalty is the whole of his life. A taste of loyalty, obviously the short film. Am I allowed to ask what that's going to cover?
Yeah, you're more than welcome. It's
We
So
won't tell you, but you
when
can
does
ask.
it?
yeah. We're not. Yeah, we won't say
Because I know you
too
said the
much.
Battle of Barnet.
Yeah, so I think what's really important to reiterate here, and we mentioned it briefly at the beginning, is that it is a proof of concept short film. So the idea is it's not going to be very long. It's only going to be probably around 10 minutes. So it really is this chance, this opportunity to show the world our concept, what we can do. And I think importantly for us is we want it to feel like a community homegrown project. Part of the reason I'm working with Matt, part of the reason we've got Tiffany on board, part of the reason we've got loads of other people on the team already is because of their love and passion of the history. And they're the people who have dedicated their lives to learning about it. And they want to see this story told in a new way. And well, then why not? Let's use that experience. Let's use that creative vision. Let's use that passion and let's bring it to life. And that's where it comes down to this crowdfunder that we've launched, and that is still underway at the moment. Is it's giving people an opportunity who want to see this story told to be a part of it. It doesn't matter how big or how small, every little contribution helps. And filmmaking is an expensive business. It is a big business. But what we can do is we can put on a plate a little slice of our vision and what we believe we can achieve if we had the support behind us to go all the way. And so with A Taste of Loyalty, it is focused around Barnet and the events that take place at Barnet. And more importantly, it is the moment we meet Richard and Edward and their relationship for the first time, which, as Matt has rightly said, we often pick up Richard in 1483, after his brother's death. Whereas there is an incredible relationship that is so complex that goes on before that point. And it's that relationship that causes a lot of what happens. You know, the trust between them, the distrust between them, the tension, the family love, the disputes, all of that juicy stuff. And so we meet those two in our Taste of Loyalty at a point where the Battle of Barnet is about to change both of their lives for the rest of their lives, really. And so that's what our Taste of Loyalty is focused on. And we hope that, our aim is that we ignite a spark in the interest of that relationship and go, oh, where's that going to go next? What's the outcome going to be because of this relationship? If that answers your question, I hope it does.
Yeah. I want to move on to Tiffany now, because I mean, with a Taste of Loyalty, so you've got the Battle of Barnet, and I mean, Tiffany, you're a composer, and I'm just thinking of the challenges that's a
So am I.
mammoth task to kind of do music for Battle of Barnet. How do you even go about
It's
doing a
something
score
I've
for
not
this project?
Yeah, it's something I've not quite delved into, not this kind of thing before. So I've done music for a couple of local films before, a PC game. I've played music at Doctor Who events under Concord down in Somerset. That was great. So I've done loads of different things, but my dream has always been to write music for film, TV, or documentary. So it was fate for me, really, because obviously I read Matt's books all the time. I'm going to make him go red again now. History Hit is great. Gone Medieval every week. I just love Matt's stuff. And I'd seen the Voice for Richard project. And 2 days later, I found out that the guy who did the voice for Richard was at the theatre at the top of our street, which is literally 4 minutes walk away. So I thought, right. So we met up, and we got talking about Richard III, and then he mentioned this project, and I said, do you need any music for it? And he did. So it was fate for me, really. It's fantastic.
But battles, I mean,
Yeah.
how do you even start? Where do you start with that?
I'm getting some ideas together, because obviously the footage is going to help me. So when I even if I'm there on the day and see what's happening, then watch the footage back. I suppose a lot of composers do it that way anyway. But I've got some ideas going, and it's uncertainty is the word that Thomas has been using. So that's in here, and it's the creating the feeling of uncertainty with certain instruments and, sounds or pauses or something like that. So I get inspiration from other films, that kind of period, and sort of listen to what they've done and then come up with my own thing. So, it's a challenge, but what a challenge.
Oh, I can't wait to
I
hear
think
it.
in terms of the music as well, no pressure here, Tiffany, but we've got 10 minutes to deliver as many messages as we can deliver in 10 minutes. It's kind of a race against time. Can we tick, 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 tick? There's going to be some fighting. There's going to be some brotherly relationship. There's going to be some politics. And as Tiffany said, lots of tension, lots of fear, lots of adrenaline, and lots of uncertainty, and all of those kinds of things. And the music is a key part in the 10 minutes that we've got the music is going to be delivering some of those messages for us, or reinforcing the messages that you're getting. So it's great to have Tiffany on board and have her, working through the ideas of the film and how can music complement what you're seeing on screen and reinforce and deliver an extra layer. Because we've only got 10 minutes, the music is going to be key to delivering as much as we can in that 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I love the fact as well that Tiffany, you're a Ricardian through and through, aren't you? You're not just you're not just a composer. You're not just a film score composer. You are someone that feels very passionate about the history and Richard's story. I love the fact that all three of you are just you're not a director, actor, composer, right? You all feel very strongly about Richard III and are coming at this from a background of knowledge and expertise, and I love that.
Yeah, I think obsessed is the word.
Yeah, it could be. That could be.
It really, but it all started for me. Obviously, they found his remains in 2012, and then they were taken to the cathedral in 2015. And then when COVID hit, we're in the garden reading books, and it all started with a book about Richard III, and it all went from there. And I must admit, I do not read any other fiction. It has to have that historical element for me. So that's where it all started for me. But I've been to so many of the places associated with Richard, and Leicester's only an hour away. So yeah.
Now you all need to hold up your Richard III goodies to show that you are Ricardians. Come on, let's have a look at what you've got.
Coffee with Richard.
Yes, Thomas is going to get his. Matt's got. Oh,
Matt, that's amazing.
Matt, you need
one
to
of them
so that I can see it big, because very little.
We need a little Richard.
That's amazing.
This is a guy who is running a Kickstarter at the moment. To raise funds
I interviewed him as well.
Yes.
He's brilliant. Yeah, his book's brilliant. Yeah. Thank you. So you've
the mug on my shelf.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I haven't got anything, sorry. My excuse is I'm at my husband's desk. I've just got history books behind me. So, okay, I want to ask Thomas a question now, because Thomas, you're all over this project and you've got so many different hats that you're wearing, and it's just, it must be such a challenge. How do you do it, and which hat is the hardest to wear? Tell us about your involvement in it, exactly which hats you're having to wear and which is the hardest for you.
Yeah, so I'm kind of I've got fingers in lots of pies, really. I'm producing it, obviously along with Matt. I've worked on the adaptation with Matt as well, to the screen. I will be directing it, and I'm also playing Richard at the same time. So there's a good four roles that I'm taking on. I think for me it all stems from having the vision, and believing that I can bring the creative side to the historical side, and I've loved history, and in particular Richard III, for many years. But at the same time, I'm not an expert historian, but I believe that my knowledge is intrinsic for why I find it so exciting, and why I think it's a story that people will relate to. And I think, and when it comes to the different hats that we're wearing, I just believe in getting it done. I think the whole point of this project is going, I don't want to wait. I'm an actor, so I work a lot in this industry. I've worked, all over the country, all over the world, on stage, on screen. And one of the things that frustrates me about it is sometimes it's the bureaucracy of it, is how long things take, and how many hoops you have to jump through to get anywhere. And by the time you've jumped through 10 or 15 hoops, it's no longer the same story anymore. It's no longer the same project. It doesn't have the same passion at the heart of it, because you've had to, you've had to satisfy the wants and needs of 1,000,001 producers who are going to help you get it across the line. And so for me, it was about going, right, I want to take control of this, and I want to go, we have the people. I believe in the people on this team, and I believe in the people within the history community, that they have as much experience as anybody to bring this to life. And so the producing side is that necessary evil that has to be done. We have to put in the groundwork. We have to set up the crowdfunding. We have to have the social media. We have to get the word out there. I have to have the boring meetings where we're talking about, portaloos on location for when we're filming and things like that. We have to do all that, because only when that is in place can the magic start to happen. The the writing side of things is not really the writing, it's more the just adapting it to a screenplay format from Matt's work. So again, my experience of working for many, many years in the business with film scripts, having auditioned for some top films and having access to those scripts, and and knowing what makes a good film script, it's helping to adapt it into that format. The director side is because, as Matt will say, it's having that image and how we bring that image to life on the screen, and how the shots cut from one to the other, and how we tell the story. Because we could have all the historical, authentic suits of armor and locations as we want, but if we don't have the story at the heart of it, we lose interest. People switch off. They change the channel. And then from the acting side of things, it's just that at the heart of all of this is we want to tell Richard's story, and I love his story, and I think it's a very human story, as I've mentioned before, and I just want to do him justice. And I feel like it's a character that I've always dreamed of playing, but not so much the Shakespeare version, funnily enough. And because of that, I feel like, bearing in mind I've done the voice for Richard project, where physically I'm the same height, I have a similar facial structure, so that my voice was the closest we could get to what he would have actually sounded like. I just feel like, if as actors, we are born to do certain projects, and for me this is my one, and that's why I'm very excited to be able to take the bull by the horns and drive it through. And I think part of that passion has helped bring an exciting array of people on board. I've just been on the phone to our fight team, our fight captain, our fight director. We've got fight rehearsals booked in now, so all the fighting action that we're going to see, and at the front of the camera, that's all going to be worked out beforehand and choreographed, and we've got a highly skilled team on board for that. And yeah, that's just one department, along with Tiffany and Matt. Our costume lady is amazing as well. She's making a lot of the costumes by hand. Yeah,
it's huge, because even though it's a short film, you've got to do everything properly, and because it is to try and do a full-length feature film, you need there must be thousands of people involved in something like this.
there is a
And
lot.
Huge.
and the first cast member that you announced today, by the way.
Oh yeah, we've cast our war horse for Richard, which is
Amazing.
I did
lovely.
see that, yeah.
Cooper.
Which is lovely. Cooper, Super Cooper, we like to call him.
Oh.
What I love about him as well is he happens to be performing at Warwick Castle at the moment in the Wars of the Roses show. So he has past experience of the history, and we know how complicated the politics can be. So the fact he's got to grips with that already is a great start. And then just on top of that, the I had something on the tip of my tongue and it's gone. Oh well, it'll come back in a minute.
But yeah, there must be just so many people. It's such a huge project. It's not just the three of you.
No,
So
it's
I will
massive.
say, Thomas has said there that he's wearing 4 hats. That's absolute nonsense. He's wearing about 400 hats, because none of this would have happened without Thomas and his passion and his drive, and the amount of times that we've said, I mean, the whole idea of doing the short film was his, and every once in a while it'll be like, we probably ought to work out a budget, and then about 2 hours later Thomas will be, here's the budget, I've done the budget, I've sorted all that out, I've bought the portaloos, I've spoken to these people, I'm heading down there this weekend to do something else. He's doing 400 things all at once, and this would absolutely not be happening if Thomas wasn't doing all of those things.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And at the end of the day, Matt, it's your baby, isn't it? This book, yeah, and I think that must be really hard, actually, sort of working with other people, yeah, with a team, and letting go of your baby a bit. What's it like, sort of collaborating with a team?
I am a bit of a control freak, but I will say that working on the, I mean, as Thomas said at the start, we've actually been working on this for years. Working with Thomas has been nothing but an absolute pleasure, and it's been so interesting to hear. The thing about writing a novel is I can write a story, a novel, and I can put things in there. To some extent, it's up to you what you take away from that. People might identify things that I actually didn't know I was writing at the time. People might not pick up on messages that I've tried to plant throughout the book. That's kind of out of my control once I've written it and put it out there anyway. And so it's been fascinating to work with Thomas on developing, key parts of that story, because necessarily you cut a novel down to a film script that might be an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. You're cutting out so much whilst trying to keep some of those really key themes and messages running through the book. And it's been really good fun to work with Thomas on how you deliver those on screen in a short time. You've written 20 pages of exposition here. I can do that in a 5-second shot of something on a table.
Yeah, you're restructuring the whole thing, aren't you, really?
Yeah. And you have to. And I think it's been a real joy to work with Thomas. And like I said before, it has, for me, it's been a real backwards and forwards of, we need to do this. How do we do it? What if we did this? Well, maybe if we did that as well. What if we change it to this? And that has been a joy. I haven't felt like I've let go of something that I desperately need to keep control of, because Thomas has never made me feel like I'm out of control of it. We seem to be on the same page most of the time, and he is bringing all of his creative expertise, and I'm trying to keep one eye on the history, but I'm not going to do that too much because Thomas is interested in the history anyway. And hopefully I'm interested in the creative side of it and the creative vision too. So it's not like we're pulling against each other at any point through this. So to a great extent, I feel like this script isn't me letting go of the book. This is the book developing and becoming a slightly different form. It's a Pokemon evolution of the book into a movie.
Yeah, coming to life, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah.
Can I the thing I forgot to mention earlier, which links into all of this about the amount of people working on it. We have a VIP screening event planned in for this project on the 3rd of March next year at the one and only Warwick Castle. And so a story that effectively the three characters we meet in A Taste of Loyalty is Warwick, Richard, and Edward. All three of those people were very significantly involved with Warwick Castle at one point or other in their lifetime. And we have this incredible opportunity to have our own VIP red carpet screening event at Warwick Castle, where we will be showing the film inside the Great Hall next year on the 3rd of March. So it's a great chance for the creative, the history to meet the to meet the part of the present, as it were, the creative vision. And our aim is to get as many of the team down there. And people, one of the perks of donating, there are different perk levels on the Indiegogo page, but one of those perks is the option of basically donating a certain amount that gives you access to come to that specific event. Now, it is limited to 120 people as a capacity because of how many, because of the size of the Great Hall. But it is going to be a really, really special event, because that will be an opportunity for us to bring the big team together. And we are aiming to have historians from all different walks of life there, to have creatives from different parts of the industry there as well, to have people who invested their time and their dedication and their passion into the film, and then of course those people who have supported this film from day dot, and we'll all come together and we'll watch the film for the first time, and it's going to be epic. It really, really is. And so if you are interested in coming to the event, please do go to the page and select the VIP screening perk, because yeah, you won't want to miss it.
And that
It's
gives
nerve.
you a bit of a deadline as well, really, doesn't
It
it? I was
does.
going to
It
ask, what is your
does.
deadline
It
for
does.
this?
Exactly right. And part of my thinking, part of my concept of I want to get this done, I want to take action, is this is the first step. It's not the end of the road. When this film comes out, it's not going to be right end of the road. There will be other things that we will be doing with it. We want to submit it to festivals. We'll be using it
Yeah.
as part of our pitch to other production companies and things to try and build up some interest for the full length feature of Loyalty. But because of that, we need to get it done. We need to get it done, and we need to have it ready by a certain date. People are coming from all over the world now, so we've got to make sure it happens by then. There's no excuses. But it also means people can look forward to it. People can know in their diaries it's happening. That's when it's going to happen. It's not going to be one of those films that disappears off into the ether for 15 years before it finally gets finished. No, we've got a deadline, and we will stick to that, and we'll get it done.
And what a backdrop, Warwick Castle as well.
It's incredible. It's
Yeah.
honestly it's going to be very, very special. It's right at the heart of, it's in the center of the country, right at the heart of the history community. It's a beautiful castle to visit anyway. So anybody coming to the event, I'd fully recommend coming and visiting the castle during the day. And yeah, I mean,
And it was where Richard's Queen was born.
it's where Richard's Queen was
Yes.
born. Warwick obviously owned it, the
Yeah.
Kingmaker, and
It had
Edward
to
was
be
in
there.
prison there, before they went into exile, wasn't he, Matt? Just correct me if I'm wrong, but he was imprisoned at Warwick Castle. So these characters, they would have walked in those halls, in those rooms, on those walls, and we're telling their story. And we're going to have a red carpet with photographers and press. Why would you want to miss it? You wouldn't.
And can I ask each of you, so you're there in March at Warwick Castle. The audience sit down, they're going to watch the short film. Which parts of the film are you going to be most excited about for the audience to see? Which part? Each of you, I want to know.
Go on, Thomas.
Do you want me? No, I'm not going to start with this one. All I'm going to say is let's
Go
try
on,
not to give
Tiffany.
anything away when we talk about it. Let's try not to give
Okay.
anything away. That's all I'm going to
Yeah,
say.
that's the thing, you see, because we've got the plan of what we're doing. I think it's just for everybody to see the real Richard, because the Lost King came close. I loved that sort of that adaptation of him, that kind, how we kept turning up and things like that. But yeah, I think to see the real Richard, and it's going to be so different than everything else they know, every other sort of portrayal of him. I think as a whole, that would be it for me.
Okay. Matt.
I think I'm looking forward to seeing the battle, the fighting. Thomas is talking about there's a fight team putting together the sequences. There are going to be reenactors involved, so we are going to have as close to genuine late 15th century kit as you can possibly have. None of this, that armor is from a century earlier, or that's too late. We're going to have the reenactors there who live and breathe this, and there's going to be a coordinated fight going on in front of it, and all of this will be done. We're filming it in a weekend, the battle scene, with a very, very limited budget, and I think it's going to be incredible to see how that is going to look on screen. I suspect it's going to look like it had a much bigger budget than it did, and I'll be interested to see people's reaction to a fight scene that I think will look as good as this one will look.
That's awesome. That's really awesome.
And Thomas, go on.
I think for me, I'm going to look forward to. It's going to sound really cheesy. I think I'm going to look forward to the credits and to seeing everybody's names come up at the end, and hopefully have that feeling of we did it. We actually did it, and however it comes out, I have full faith. It's that we're going to sprinkle our magic dust on it, but that is going to be an achievement, and to have everybody there and to have historians there, who, whether they agree or disagree on the history, on the interpretation of the history, it doesn't matter. This is not about that. I would like to reiterate, this is not just a let's paint Richard out to be the biggest hero ever, and let's praise him as a god. It's not about that. This is genuinely about bringing a human story to life, all the rights and wrongs, the good, the bad, the all of that is there. And so to have a history community in a way united behind a project where they're going to sit there and they go, we did this. I want people to sit there and think we did it, and it's not not they, some distant Netflix producer who has thrown 150 million at it, but actually doesn't really mind the fact they're all walking around in really dark brown leathers, and they're all, it's all dark and it's all not how it would have been. This is something for the community, and to show that can creatively work too. And so when we all sit there and get to the end of it, and hopefully people like it,
Oh, I'm sure they will.
I think that's what I'm looking forward to.
Now, all three of you have got this commitment to history and to Richard sort of in particular as a person. So I'd like to know from each of you, and Tiffany just mentioned this about the bringing to people the real Richard. Who is the real Richard to each of you?
Not the Shakespeare version.
No.
Nowhere near. I think we always say, don't we? I know Matt's done these documentaries before, and they'll ask various historians, was he a good guy or was he a bad guy? We can't look at this from a 21st century point of view with these eyes. You've got to go back to the 15th century, and usually they're somewhere in the middle. So that's why we're not saying we're going to show you good King Richard or Duke of Gloucester. It's the real Richard.
And I think just building on that, I'd say, it's not someone who is black or white. This is shades of grey. He's a human being. He is a man trying to make his way in a world during an incredibly tumultuous and complex point in English history. Does he get everything right? Probably not. Is he deliberately getting things wrong? Probably not. Is he just trying to do his best for himself and his family, and to some extent as a nobleman for the political being of England? I think he probably is. That doesn't mean he gets it all right, and that doesn't mean he's a fantastically nice chap either. I imagine Richard absolutely infused with that Plantagenet temper, that willingness to, or that inability to control his temper sometimes when things are going wrong. I absolutely think there are bits of his character that you can pull out that mean you're not painting him as this whiter than white knight on a white steed riding, to the rescue of everybody. What I hope people will take away from this is that Richard is just a complex person living in complex times, like all of us are. Very few people would believe themselves to be the villain of their own story. We all want to be the hero in our own lives, don't we? And I don't think that was any different 500 years ago. I think Richard would have said he wanted to be the hero of his own story, which I think is the reason I don't see him doing terrible, evil things because he's a terrible, evil person. If he makes mistakes, they're mistakes rather than being driven by vicious nastiness.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Tiffany and Matt have just said. I think the only addition I'll put in is at this point in A Taste of Loyalty, he is a young Richard. He is not, he is not I would argue, I mean, potentially they matured a lot quicker if he's fighting on a battlefield at 18 and leading men. But, I want us to explore this idea of he's not in control, and he's not ready for everything that life has to throw at him. He's not one of our movie heroes who goes in and is just in control and has this superhuman kind of gift of being able to deal with everything. No, it hits and it hurts and it feels. And actually being the fourth son, he was never, bred to be king. He was never meant to be thrust, at the heart of it in the way that he was. And so yeah, that youth, I think, is important in this, in our story, and that lack of control. And that's what comes down to, we were talking about the music and the uncertainty, is actually, it's, you know, we often assume these big political famous people are always in control. They know what they're doing. We just assume they know what they're doing. I think at this point he doesn't. He has to learn. And how does he learn? As Matt says, he probably makes mistakes.
Mm. And I'd like to sort of draw this to a close by just talking about the actual crowdfunding side of things. Obviously, you're crowdfunding right now, aren't you, for this
Yes.
project? So can I ask you, firstly, why is this support crucial to the project? And what would you say to people to convince them to support A Taste of Royalty? Anyone can answer this.
I think the crowdfunding is vital, because that's where the budget for the film is coming from. I mean, you know, let's just be real. Let's get to the nuts and bolts. We need that money to make this film. The reason we decided to go for crowdfunding rather than going out looking for loans or you know, to involve film production companies or anything like that at this point is because, as Thomas has been talking about all the way through this, we wanted this to be a community thing. We want people who are interested in history to buy into the idea that you can make something that is historically accurate, that looks incredible, that tells a fantastic story. And not only can you do that on a reasonably, well, very small budget, I'm sure Thomas would say a very small budget, but also you can be part of that if you want to.
Yeah.
You can be a key part of making that film happen. Everyone that's donated to that crowdfunder so far, and everyone that will hopefully think about going and donating to it now, will know that this couldn't have happened without them. They will be able to look at that film and think, that only happened because I supported it,
Yeah.
because I believed in it, because I wanted to be a part of it. And I think that's really, really cool. We're trying to do something a little bit different. We're trying to make a film that isn't the Hollywood version of history, that isn't the dark medieval aesthetic where, you know, everyone is wearing brown, the sky is always grey, and you can barely see anything. We're going to try and recreate the medieval world, and you can be part of bringing that to the screen. And I think that's cool. If I saw this project, I would donate to it.
And how do people do that?
So there is on our socials, so we are on Instagram and Facebook. There is a link in our bio to the Indiegogo campaign. We can also send you through the link as well, Claire.
Yeah, I'll share the link with this video.
So
But
we can have the link in
what's
the
your
video.
name on social media, on Instagram and that?
A Taste of Loyalty
A
short
Taste
film.
of It. Okay.
It will come straight up. And on the crowdfunding page, there are a variety of perks that start from £1 and they go all the way through to, I think, £300 is the highest one we have on offer at the moment. And at each level, you get different things with those purchases. So, for example, for a £10 donation, when the film is released, you get a copy of it, a HD copy of it, sent through to you, so you can have a night where you have a glass of wine, you sit back and you watch what you were a part of being made, all the way up to being a funding producer, where it's a little bit more that you have to put in, but you get benefits of having your name on the credits, being invited to the VIP screening event. There's other perks involved, like getting one of Matt Lewis's biographies about Richard signed by him.
That's out next.
I did try and tell Thomas that that's not a perk, that's a punishment for people, but he insisted we did it.
I don't know. I think it's amazing that that's on offer. T-shirts as well, crew T-shirts for the film. So there's a variety of things, and we also, because there is a lot of interest from abroad, we have an overseas bundle as well, where everything is digital, but they can get their hands on the script, on a copy of the film. The soundtrack that Tiffany is going to be composing for us will also be on there. So there's lots of things that people can buy into, so you get something back. It's not just, I'm supporting this, you're supporting us, but you're also getting back from it. And yeah, the community is exactly as Matt says. The budget, we've already raised a lot more money than we expected we could. And why that is so fantastic is because when it comes to the historical authenticity, we can look at all of the tiny little details, and those details will make a difference. And obviously there is only so far the budget can go, but it is a concept, it is a proof of concept, and we want to show the potential of it. And there's a lot of people working, night and day on this behind the scenes, and everything that we can give them to support them to make their best work, it will come out on the screen. For example, we are having banners made, specific Warwick Bear and Ragged Staff pendants made for the film specifically, and that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for all the support from the crowdfunding. So it every little helps, and it will not be wasted, we can promise you that.
And as well as financial support, what other ways can people help the project? So just sharing it on social media?
Spread the
share.
word.
Yeah.
Spread the word. Be proud of it. Look forward to it. Talk about it. Express an interest in it. The more we can, on our Instagram page, in the first month that it's been up there, we've had over 75,000 views on the page for the film. So people are interested. We just need to get that word out there. And there are lots of ways people can support. We've had people sending in, messages saying, I'm a reenactor. I'd like to come down and join in with the reenactors. Fantastic. Oh, I make, banners. I can help you with this. Or I've got this idea. How about that? Would that be useful? And if you have something like that and you want to be involved, we can't promise it because we might not need it, but we still love to hear it, because you never know what you can bring to a project like this and where we take it up that extra level. And it's the passion that when people are doing it for a day job, they just don't have.
Thank you. Right, okay, just a fun question for each of you. Tiffany, who's your
Yes.
favourite film score composer?
The trouble is with me.
You got too many.
No, I've got loads of favourite composers, but I tend to lose the film because I'll listen to the music. I'll just drift off because the music's so nice, and then I'll lose the film. But Hans Zimmer is fantastic. Yeah. Anyone who does minor chords, great.
We love a minor chord.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. There'll be a few of them.
Didn't think you were going to say Hans Zimmer. I don't know why, but I did not expect Hans Zimmer. Okay.
Yeah, Hans Zimmer, James Newton Howard, they've been, and Vangelis as well. Vangelis was a big influence for me. Tangerine Dream as well, but obviously they don't do soundtracks anymore. So,
okay, thank you. And Matt, if you could sit down with Richard III and ask him one question to finally settle something, what would that question be?
I think I'd probably completely waste that opportunity and ask him whether he thinks you put cream or jam first on a scone, just to annoy everybody.
Oh, I love that.
You can't say that.
Yeah, but that's how you get to really know a person, isn't it? There's only one right answer to that question, and it would tell you so much about.
What is the right answer?
I was going to say, go on then, Matt. What would you?
You're willing to put your head on the line there, right?
Jam first. Jam first is the only right answer. I'm sorry.
Yes, definitely.
If you've just alienated half of our audience, I'm coming for you, Matt. All right.
Half of the Southwest.
I'm being honest.
We're not all like that. I promise.
Joking aside, I mean, it would have to be Where Are Your Nephews, Rich?
Yes.
That's going to have to be the one to get an answer from him of what happened to the princes in the tower. I don't know, but then you'd have to believe what he told you, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
he's unlikely, unless he's under a truth serum, he's unlikely to sit there and tell you that he murdered little children. But you'd have to ask him.
Yeah. Now I've got to think of something for Thomas. Okay, Thomas, which other historical character would you like to bring to life? Putting you on the spot there.
Good
we're on
good
about
question.
The next one already.
So I have I have two answers to this question. There is one answer which is, I think, would make a brilliant historical drama film, and then there is another which is a historical figure I would love to play. And actually, I'm going to go with the Shakespeare Henry V. I absolutely love that play. I think it is a really, really interesting examination of leadership and what good leadership should be, and the trials and tribulations to get there, and the journey Hal goes on, actually making, again, as Matt said about, you know, earlier, people make mistakes, and Henry makes a lot of mistakes in that play, and it kind of, you know, it comes through at the end. But there's some beautiful speeches in there. There's a real connection to the weight that Henry feels being king, and I think we're very quick to judge people in high places because obviously everything they do we can have our own opinions on, but only very few people who have been in that situation understand the weight on their shoulders and the responsibility that they feel. So Henry V is the answer to that question. In terms of an exciting film, there is a Polish bear in the Second World War who joined the army and fought against the Nazis, and he is a Polish hero. And while I need to know the name, I can't remember his name, but it is a beautiful story, where he basically, the Polish regiment, when they were founded, found this young lad. I think they were down in the Middle East somewhere selling a young bear, and they bought the bear because they felt sorry for, you know, they didn't want him to go and do you know, be a dancing bear. So they bought him, and they brought him up, and he just integrated with the Polish regiment and the soldiers, and became very human in his interactions. So he would have showers with them, he would go swimming with them, he loved the women. Apparently he'd like nick their knickers and things like that, and obviously, you know, the men thought he was a great wingman. And then when it came to the regiment moving out, they weren't allowed to take him with them because he wasn't part of the armed forces, and only the armed forces could travel, and animals couldn't go with, pets couldn't go with. So the only way they could keep the bear with him was if they signed him on. And so the Polish army made him, I think it was a private, they made him join the army so he could go with them. And he spent the entire war with this regiment. And it's an incredible story. Survived the war, fought at the Battle of Monte Cristo, and help them load he basically would transport these cannon shells to and from the front line to help the military. And I just think the Polish story in the Second World War is a really, really sad, horrific story, actually. And I think in a way we don't know enough about it. But when you then bring this element into it with this incredible creature and this very beautiful story between, you know, man and animal, and yeah, it just brings so much joy to the heart, I think, when you hear about it. And I think it would make a beautiful film. I really do.
Wow, that's your next
You didn't
project,
expect
Ed.
that answer, did you?
I did not, but I love
Amazing.
it.
But this is what I mean by history. You don't need to make it up. There are so
Yeah.
many incredible stories. I mean, Matt, you've talked about so many characters in your podcasts over the years that need to be made into films. Owen Glendower being one of them.
Yeah.
And again, another fantastic story there, and it's just waiting to be told.
Oh, well, I can't believe how long we've talked, but I think we've covered everything. So thank you so very much, all three of you, for spending this time with me and explaining the project. And I'm really very excited about it, very excited about seeing it. And congratulations on already reaching the first goalpost that you put down. So congratulations on that. Thank you very much. And I will definitely be sharing all the links and all your social media and that in the description for the video. So thank you very
Great.
much.
Thank
Thanks so
you.
much.
Thank you
Take
for
care,
having us,
guys.
Claire. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.